So you've done everything you can to keep your web surfing habits private, but have you really covered all the possible leaks? Jim Louderback joins us with Internet security expert Steve Gibson to tell us what we may have overlooked. This kind of stuff scares the beans out of me.
Well, it ought to. I mean, there's just so much privacy violation going on now all over the place. I talked to a writer who writes for a business magazine in Canada a few months ago. He just went to a website to browse around, turned the computer off, went outside to do some gardening, and they phoned him. They knew his name, they had his home phone number. It happened to be the Chicago Lyric Opera, and they said they wanted to make sure he knew they had a special going on for out-of-town visitors. He didn't fill out any forms, he just went to the site. So personal data is being collected all the time as you move around the web, and now that data is beginning to be sold.
Now, there are a lot of tools out there that supposedly help protect you and keep you safe, but a lot of them just don't work, you've found, right?
Well, some of them don't work. For example, firewalls are leaking information even though they're supposed to be safe. And the big problem is most people aren't using these tools. You know, there are people who are aware of the danger of, like, you know, that there are bad cookies, but the default settings that most people use are not secure. They're not safe.
Well, let me talk about firewalls and cookies for a minute. A firewall is something that you put in place that will keep people supposedly from getting into your system and stealing your data, whereas internet sites will often place little cookies, little snippets of information on your computer and then track what you do, right?
Exactly. Well, traditionally, firewalls kept the bad guys out. And of course, now the problem is that personal information that's inside is leaking out of the computer. So the newer firewalls block it both directions.
Well, how is that happening? How's the information getting out, and how do you stop it?
It's, for example, people talk about how they go to a website and suddenly they've got Comet Cursor loaded on their machine, because web browsers will run scripts on websites and download things without you doing anything. Just like installing components in your computer without your knowledge or permission.
And you made an interesting point after my first question, and that's that if you just get caught once, they can sell this information to any number of sites or organizations.
Exactly, and the information doesn't expire, so it just sits there in their database, and they're able to resell it, you know, forever.
Now, there are a couple of big things that have happened in the last week. TiVo, a research study came out and said TiVo is actually giving your data away. I'm a TiVo customer. That doesn't bother me that much. Should it bother me?
You know, but what I have found talking to people about privacy issues is there are really people that are completely divided on two different sides of this. Many people feel like you, oh, you know, I don't care if people know where I go. It's, you know, I have nothing to hide. It's just not a concern. But there are people who are just feel diametrically different. They philosophically, they don't like the idea of being watched and tracked just because no one asked them if it was okay.
So what do? How do you ensure that you're safe, that the software that you have actually works, and that people aren't going out and getting at you? What can you do?
Probably, you know, watch tech TV.
Good answer.
Pay attention to the, no, I mean, you know, because there are solutions available. I'm working on a bunch of that stuff. Also, you know, and sort of continuously. But it's, I guess the idea is to first raise the level of awareness so that people know what's going on, and then sort of like keep an eye out for solutions when you see them in magazines and on the show.
So as far as particular solutions go, you recommend that people have a firewall, right?
Yes, I think you need a firewall to deal, and you know, that's not money. You know, Zone Alarm, for example, one of my favorites, is free.
So Zone Alarm is free. Have a firewall. What should you do about cookies? Should you have cookies on? Should you turn them off? Should you use them at all?
Well, the problem is it's becoming almost impossible to surf the web without cookies enabled, because many sites depend upon you taking a cookie in order to like follow you around their own site, and that's how cookies were designed. It was for allowing them to maintain contact with you as you surf within their site. They weren't meant to track you off of the site. So you know, unfortunately, we need more tools.
Jim, you're asking. I mean, the same question I'm asking is what do we do about it? You know what I think? My biggest fear is that there is nothing. Someday, there's nothing we'll be able to do about it. It's just going to be the price you pay for surfing the net. Is that people are going to know everything about you?
Well, you know, what I want to know is who should we be most worried about? Should we be most worried about big companies like Microsoft, rogue hackers from Russia, or what?
I think it's the commercial interests in the country who don't have enough respect for individual privacy and want to sell it any way they can.
Now I already have an email address that I use just for signing up for things that I use nowhere else. It knows nothing about me. Do you think we're going to end up with sort of separate personas on the net, where it's, you know, I'm me here physically, but there are 3 different versions of me that are different on the internet?
I think that people may actually create virtual personalities. My solution is I've added a .2000, a .2001, a .2002 to the end of my email address, and I expire those addresses every year. That way, that sort of the accumulation of junk mail, you just sort of shed it, you know. And if someone writes to you at my address .2001 and it doesn't work next year, you know, and it bounces back, they can probably figure out what the new address is. But, you know, some automated mailer won't be able to.
Interesting stuff. Thank you very much. Steve Gibson is an internet security expert. Good to talk to you.